All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get into the main topic of the day that you have all been waiting for. All right, I know all the ladies of the Good Guys podcast have been patiently waiting and counting down the hours because we got on the ladies last week. And I told you guys it was a two-part series. All right, so now the time has finally come. We're going to get on the men. All right. Last week, we talked about 4 mistakes that women make in relationships. This week, we're going to get down to it. All right. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty. All right. We're going to talk about 4 mistakes that men make in relationships. Like I said, this is where it really counts, man, because anytime I hear about, a couple who's having issues in their relationship, no matter what it is, 97.9% of the time, I'm looking at the man. There's something you're not doing. It's in some kind of way. All right. So today we're going to talk about 4 mistakes that men make in relationships. This is not an exhaustive list. There are actually a lot of other points that both of us, wanted to talk about, but in the interest of time, we're going to keep it to 4. We might do some more in a different video on another day. But for today, we're going to go ahead and get it started with the first mistake that a lot of men make in relationships. And that is the inability to lead. All right. So as a man, that's your responsibility. Your responsibility is, as dictated by God, to be the head of the household, to be the leader of the household, to water your wife and your family with the word. That is our job. Okay. And a lot of times men are not, suited to be a leader. They don't know how to lead, and they just quite frankly do it wrong. And I think a lot of times men have the idea that, because I'm the head of the household, I am automatically, by default, the leader, and you are required to listen to me. And they lead in that way, and that's not the proper way to lead. You have to give your wife something to submit to. The Bible tells the woman, wives submit to your husbands, but you have to give her something to submit to. Okay, the leadership that comes from you starts from your personal relationship with God. So that's you being plugged into God, you spending time with God, you hearing from God. That's how the chain of command should be. God, okay, you're submitted to God. He communicates to you as the head of your household, and you submit, you relay that to your wife, and, she disperses it to your children and things like that. That's the chain of command. Okay. So if you're not plugged in, and your relationship with God is not where it should be, and you're not hearing from God, then you can just be telling her anything. Your opinion could be based on the stuff you're watching on TV, the music that you're listening to. So you're giving her bad information. And if she's plugged into, her relationship with God, she's like, that don't sound right. And she's not going to feel comfortable and secure submitting to you and your leadership, and it's not going to work. Okay. So that's the main point. If you are not plugged in, if you do not have a solid relationship with God, you're not going to be able to lead properly.
Yeah, man. If leadership begins with being led. That's why I tell every man who is leading you. A lot of us men, we get our intel and information from all types of influences. Your sole source of influence, your sole source of information has to be God. If you're not led, you're dead, because he's the living life. If you want to have a vibrancy in your marriage, a vibrancy in your relationship, a vibrancy in every area that you're in, you have to be led by the Spirit of God. He is the Spirit that empowers you to be sacrificial. And that's why men have to understand the importance of being a servant leader. Servant leadership is the key about being a man. If you really want to see your wife naturally submit to you, you have to first be sacrificial. You have to sacrifice. You have to be a living sacrifice. Romans 12 says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. That in order for me to live, I have to sacrifice something. And men, you have to understand that you have to die first before the expectation of your wife to die. Because chances are, if they see you dead and see Christ alive in you, arising in you, they don't mind submitting to that. And that's why the responsibility of leadership is denser than what is portrayed. Just because you have something between your legs don't make you a man. You say it makes you a male, it doesn't make you a man. You see what I'm saying? So I want to be a man based upon attribute, not just a male by anatomy. You see what I'm saying? So if I am a man of God, then I don't mind being a servant leader. Like my wife, she ain't even touched the dishwasher. You see what I'm saying? If she is willing to submit her time to cook for me, who am I to go sit on the couch and go take a nap? I'm going to put those dishes in the dishwasher. I'm going to say, what can I do to make sure? Because it's something about being a leader, because a leader thinks 2 moves ahead. Mm-hmm. A leader thinks 3 moves ahead. In order for me to have a happy home, let me make sure I change first. Because if I change first, I can remove certain consequences out of my home.
Right.
That if I make a decision to do better, I don't have to worry about a restless home. And so in order to really add vibrancy to your relationships, to add life, you have to be led by the one that's living inside of you. But so many men full of ego, full of all these different things, they feel like that's what their view of leadership is God's view of leadership, and that's not the case. And I have some points here is that I want men to understand is that whatever you don't tend will end. You have to tend your woman.
Yes.
Leadership is I'm thinking about you. Because think about it, man. If you take care of her, she will naturally take care of you. Right. You have to go in not with expectation, but with service. I'm not gonna expect my wife to do things for me and I just sit back and do nothing. No, I'ma act first. Right. Leadership is intentionality. I think that's the word, BD. Being intentional. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna make the move first. Anytime an issue has been in my home, I looked in the mirror, BD.
Right.
Because her emotional instability is because I did something that made her feel unstable. Right. If my stability comes from Christ, I don't have to worry about an unstable home. But those are my first few points on that, BD. I have some more, but you seem like you might have something to add.
There's just so much like that you could talk about when it comes to leadership. It probably should be a video unto itself because there's so many aspects of it. But I'm glad you pointed out just like, like leadership does not mean that you are a dictator. And I think that's where I said it. I touched on it earlier, but I think that's where a lot of guys get confused. And I like how you talked about like being a servant. Mm-hmm. That like lead from the front. Like, you know what I mean? Like leadership is not just, oh, I'm just barking orders and you do what I want you to do while I sit on the couch. Like leadership is leading the way, leading from the front. If like you said, if I see that my wife prepared dinner, hey, babe, I got the dishes. If I see my wife is struggling, getting all the kids, wrangling them to getting them to bed, I'm helping out. Hey, babe, what can I do to help? Like I'm involved in this process. I'm leading. As the man of the house, you should be dying to yourself more than anybody else in the house. Or at least that should be your mentality. I know women sacrifice so much for the family and we can't even like begin to, describe how much they have to sacrifice. But in your mind, you should be, I'm going to sacrifice more than anybody else because this family is my responsibility.
And BD, that's your last name.
Right.
You should take it for anything that has my name on it. I pay my bills on time because my name is on that.
Right.
Man, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So if you have the audacity to try to bring a woman to submit to have your last name, you got to honor your name first. If that ladies hear me closely, if that man doesn't honor his name, ask that man to show you everything his name is on, and see if it's late, to see if it's delinquent, because if you don't care about his name in front of people who he put his name on, then why you would submit your last name to his last name? And man, you gotta say, you know what? As far as me and my house,
right,
anything that has my name, we're going to serve the Lord. And that's what gives you, I think we're going to talk about this a little later, a backbone. So that if your wife is whatever, for a fact, we stand on God. That's why the Bible didn't say women wash their man with the word. No. that means you should know more word than her. That should be the expectation. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some brothers that meet a girl, and she's been in church all her life, and that's understandable. But you should be in that Bible more than her. You should be in that word, because you know for a fact if she gets in an emotional state, or she gets afraid or nervous about life because they're emotionally built, you say, no, babe, this is what the word of God says. We stand on this. And that's what leaders do. I'm telling you, BD, it's very important for men to understand that they must die first, and die every day. And death ain't easy, because you be looking at your wife and I and be like, man, I got to die for this. Yes, you have to die for it. You should have never got married if you wasn't ready to die.
Absolutely. And sometimes that leadership, it does mean having a backbone. And so as a leader, you should be setting the course for your family, right? Mm-hmm. This is, these are the things that we're going to prioritize. This is what we're working towards. And it's not something that you just come up with on your own. You can consult with your wife, take into account, her strengths and her gifts and her calling. But as far as like, sometimes you're going to have to steer the ship, where it needs to go. It's like, sometimes you're going to have to say no, is what I'm getting at. Yeah. There will be times when your wife may want to, make certain purchases or go on certain trips, or maybe live a certain type of life. And you as a man have to be able to say, hey, babe, we're not ready for that yet. Okay. We need to scale back. Okay. We need to save our money. This is what I want. This is what I see for us. This is what we need to be working towards. Sometimes you have to be able to do that. Sometimes you have to, we're moving a little bit too fast. Okay. And if you don't do that, and just because, and when you do that, sometimes she's going to get mad, right? That'll happen sometimes. And it's okay. But sometimes you have to make that call. And
thank you all so much for watching the Good Guys Podcast here on my YouTube channel. If you haven't already yet, make sure you subscribe to the Good Guys Podcast here. If you want to enjoy the rest of the content of this podcast, click this video over here. Make sure you hit the bell. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, a thumbs up. If you're watching this on Facebook, head over to YouTube right now. Type in the Good Guys Podcast. We'll love to see you over there. Subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment, thumbs up. We'll see you over there soon.